All right. And then we're going to move outwards, and then we're going to talk about we started with God, and then we're going to talk about in a way, it's your relationship with yourself, and that's with risk. And this is one of those things where I think Shakespeare had it right. My take on this is that what your risk capacity isn't as important. What your risk capacity isn't as important as that you know your risk capacity. Now, that being said, I do think that in a very real way, if you have such a just a little limited appetite for risk and you literally can only stand to be in cash and near cash items, you're going to find it very difficult to grow your nest egg. And even after you've got a nest egg, to actually keep your nest egg getting ahead of inflation. But I think knowing what your risk appetite is almost more important than really what it is. But both are important. Having some appetite for risk and knowing it. Jerry.
Well, we actually talked about this either the last time or the time before. Whenever we did that piece on suffering, right?
Mm-hmm.
Famous Catholic words. It's all about suffering. But the reality is it is, and it's through the suffering that you end up getting to the other side, both actually and figuratively. Again, observations just over time in working with folks on this. No doubt everybody has a different tolerance, and you do have to for risk, and you do have to adjust for that. But at the end of the day, those that are, and before I go into that part of it, prudence is super important, right? I mean, you mentioned about stewardship with the previous segment of the relationship topics that we started with. Stewardship, being prudent, making sure you're doing things that are not stupid, okay? And i.e., I'm going to take all of my wealth and go to Vegas and slap it down on red and let's give it a whirl. I mean, that's insanity. Calculated, smart risk taking is necessary. For one thing, it's necessary for our system to function, but it's also necessary for you to be able to be a fully, and this is my opinion, but this also is a teaching of the church, that to be a fully well-rounded person, you're taking on, you're embracing these things out there in the world that might present you with discomfort and uncertainty, and embracing those things, facing them, charging forward, and it just makes you that much better for it. And you're going to have your share of losses, but hopefully, if you're smart about it, you're going to have your share of gains, enough so that as time goes on, and I think time is so important in this, the one thing that we can't really get back, you will find that if you approach things that way, from an investment standpoint and any other aspect of life, that you'll find success. You will find a degree of success. And this has definitely been something I've observed in people too, similar to the story with my lovely client, is also those that are just completely uptight all the time, about volatility / risk / uncertainty. They don't tend to be the happier people in the client base. Ones that do embrace it or do understand it and do roll with it, they end up being very calm and cool and collected and ultimately successful. So yes, I think it is important to be able to understand yourself and know where your limits are. But I would challenge that, this world, and we have a saying in our faith that, you have to be in this world, not of this world. And by being in the world, that means you have to play the hand that you've been dealt and act accordingly. And you're not going to be able to get a guaranteed set of results. That's just all there is to it. In fact, the attempt to try and do that is what I would call Marxism, socialism, communism, call it what you want. It's trying to come up with an outcome where everything is equal. Well, it doesn't. The world just doesn't work that way. And so that's being of the world. as opposed to being in the world. In the world is recognizing what the ultimate end goal is, which is your salvation. The goal while you're here is to steward these assets the best you possibly can, steward yourself the best you possibly can. This is something that's probably a little controversial, or some people would take exception to this, and this isn't. There are people that handle risk perfectly fine that wouldn't agree with me, but to hear me out, I think that this incessant desire, and our industry, I think, is guilty of pushing this on people. This incessant desire to retire is really a problem, because what we've basically told people is that this is all just about working and getting to a point where you then and get earning enough so that you can get to a point where you can do nothing, or you can just not have to have those kinds of challenges on a regular basis. And another observation I would have is a lot of people who really pushed hard for that, then they get there and they're unhappy. Some of the happiest people I know are ones that continued working in some format. Now, maybe you change your career, maybe that you do something totally different, but you're still working. You're still facing challenges on a daily basis, and striving, having goals that are pushing you to some extent. Not that you need to be pushed to the limit of stress and anxiety. It's also a problem, but that you are still challenging yourself, putting yourself in a position where it's not just sitting back and doing nothing. And I think, the part of being of the world is succumbing to that tendency to want to get to where you can completely give up and disengage, and all I have to do now is just sit back and the proverbial play golf. And don't get me wrong, as you know, I love playing golf, but
You do love to play golf.
the only thing I would ever be doing all day long, it just put me out the pasture and put me down, for that matter. I mean, it's just, that would be ridiculously
Well,
boring.
that's kind of what golf is, putting you out pasture.
You're kind of out on a pasture, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So, in fact, I find folks that are very into golf, it's a very good, it's another topic we can have, how golf relates to investing and life. People who are very good at and play a lot that I know are also super active in business still. And they still find a way to, they take that time to go out and perfect their game, and you'll never perfect it. It's like if you think you're going to be able, you're going to be completely satisfied with your golf game ever, that's another exercise in learning, is that you won't be. So get used to it, get over it.